I was very fortunate. I was on this, what do you call it? Capital City Theater back in the day. For 7 years, I got to do some improv.
Okay.
Way more fun than having a script or rehearsing. Ugh, can't do that.
Yeah.
Guys,
Improv.
Make it up as you go.
Yeah. That's improv. I'm not more of a point, aim, shoot. Improv is more of a point, shoot, aim thing. Welcome to Heavy Lifts, the podcast for those who see what could be and are willing to risk it all to make it real. Quite dramatic, I know. I'm your host, Nat Borchers, and I had to write down the script today because last week, you may not know, I messed it up a few times and AJ gave me a hard time. So I'm excited today, though, that we are here talking with Charles Weathers. I need to say before I get into Charles, my partner in crime, AJ Nash, is on vacation in Montana, and so we will miss him, but we can make fun of him behind his back, and he's going to find out later, but it's still fun in the moment. So I'm sure Charles is going to allow me to talk more than AJ usually does. So thank you for that. But I'm really excited to have you on the show. This is our second episode, and AJ and I were talking about what guests we wanted to have on the show that we feel we're going to bring something that is going to illuminate the whole purpose of the show, which is heavy lifts and taking risks, especially as it relates to your own community. And you're someone who
No one else would call you.
Yeah, exactly. You did call us back. You know, most people don't. We burned a lot of bridges. No, just kidding. But we've admired you. I've admired you from afar. Conrad Venti is a shared friend of ours, and he speaks very highly of you. He's told me a lot about your projects, and I know we've connected here and there, but it's really awesome to have you on because I feel like you're almost a pioneer for what's been happening downtown and some of the revitalization of downtown. And I respect how you've gone about it, and I really respect the projects you've done, and we'll get into that soon. But beforehand, I would just really like to make 2 comments.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready?
Wow, you've just laid a lot on there, but yeah, keep it coming. I'm an only child. I like attention.
Well, I am also an only child.
Wonderful.
So we have that. That's exciting. I will also say we have something else in common. You may or may not know. We talked a little bit on the text thread. Charles's wife, her birthday is today.
Yes, right now.
And you came here. Thank you. Thank you to your wife. What's her name?
Alex.
Thank you, Alex, for allowing Charles to come here and be a part of this show. And my wife's birthday is tomorrow. So I feel like we're kindred spirits here. We're only children who have wives who celebrate birthdays in July near or on Independence Day. And we're into this fun real estate game. So that all being said, I've talked a lot. Thank you for being on the show. I really would like to kind of just dive in on your background, how you got into the real estate.
Oh, man. Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. Really great to be here. I joke that no one else called you back, but, like I said, I'm an only child. I'll take any kind of attention I can get. So appreciate having an opportunity to do that. Yeah, downtown is where it's ended, but it started at, real estate finance. I went and was an intern at Landmark Mortgage when I was still finishing up college, and thought, yeah, this is cool. Let's keep going. Stuck around for 16 years and did residential lending. And so you see a lot of real estate, obviously, a lot of appraisals, a lot of, tax returns, a lot of underwriting all the time. And then just kind of understanding, the money part, which is kind of the biggest part to solve for a lot of people. And so I think that really helped me take, those risks when they came up, because I could guesstimate maybe a bit better than others. But I'd seen a lot of things that didn't work also. I remember so often people would be like, I'm going to buy this house and then cut off the back lot and then subdivide this and sell that. And then the house is free. And, 4 years later, they hadn't quite gotten around to it. It's upside down. And, so seeing a lot of other people fail, I got to maybe be less likely to.
Interesting.
So that was helpful.
Yeah. So in other words, you were seeing kind of the behind the scenes real estate because you're on the finance side. And so you were able to see like these projects that people would go into with good intentions and then never be able to maybe execute.
Yeah, for sure. And also what we saw so often was, it's a sales world. I mean, selling loans is the name of that game. And so you'd see how salespeople act and maybe some good and not so good habits at times. And then people would try to sell you as a company. And my different roles throughout, I didn't just do loans. I did pretty much one of everything there at some point in my tenure. And so having to deal with all these outside salespeople, and that really helps you understand, marketing and follow up, and at the core of all of it, the value of relationships and follow through, because you'd get a new rep every few months from a different sort of vendor. Why are they always going through different employees? Oh, this time it'll be better. This time it's going to work. And, you just stick with the other one that's been there for 15 years. You're like, well, you probably know what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be doing it. And so just some of these sort of like ancillary lessons that helped shape how I've approached things, I found to just be so helpful in life in general, but especially in business, and then even further into real estate.
So I'm interested, were you started off in real estate straight out of school, out of college, and were you around then during the whole financial mess?
Yeah, I graduated in 2005, and I was a commissioned loan officer in 2006 and 2007. Enjoyed 2008. Those were...
And so you survived that period of time as a mortgage broker, because a lot of people didn't survive. And there's a lot of people who still, my generation, our generation, and older, who have just financial scars on their backs from that period of time. Can you describe like what that was like in the lending world?
I think that for me personally, I was just too new to have too much out there to have been exposed enough for it to matter. Mm-hmm. So that was just helpful. But I do remember the morning that a lot of news was hitting the fan, and I'm watching that and I go, I wonder what's going to happen at work today. But yeah, it got dicey. It was interesting. Like I said, a lot of people didn't make it, and the company had been around for so long, and they just had weathered other storms, and they'd seen double-digit interest rates and still made it work. And so there was a lot of resiliency there, but a lot of difficult times and late nights, and lots of fun that no one wants to remember. But again, like I was saying, you sort of saw the people that had been around for a long time still around. Maybe their employer wasn't, and they had to then slightly shift to a different one. But a lot of the newer companies, a lot of the ones that just seemed like they were getting too big for their britches, or biting off more than they can chew, or whatever adage you want to throw out there, they were gone faster than the other one. Certainly there were some older companies that eventually fell, but they took longer to do it, whereas the people that I guess rocketed to success plummeted much faster. And yeah, we just sort of battened down the hatches and, looked at expenses and tried not to panic, and you weathered the storm. Somebody has to at the end of the day. Everybody can't just lose.
That's true. And you talked about how you saw, into some of these projects that people would bring and try to get financing for, maybe not execute. So what got you into your first real estate project?
Just when you're around it so long, you can't help but want to try it out. It's kind of like, I must say, if you hang around the wrong crowd, you start doing the bad stuff. But this is not the wrong crowd or bad stuff. But yeah, you get influenced.
It can't be the bad stuff.
Oh, for sure. You definitely have those players. So yeah, just, kind of scrapped it together. I got my father-in-law at the time to get a second mortgage because, I knew a guy, and got a HELOC and went out there and bought a house to flip. Although I never liked that word because it always made me think of that guy. Like, I think his name was Armando, and he was rolling around in the Hummer on HGTV. And everyone's like, is that you? Are you going to get a Hummer? And I said, no, I'm not going to. No. So I never wanted to be Armando or any of those people on TV because it's not like it looks on TV, duh. And so got one and did it, and it worked and made some money. And so slow and steady wins the race. Did another one a few months later, and then didn't for a while. Some other things changed, kind of took a little bit of a hiatus, just, stayed doing the financing. And then all of a sudden, some other capital came around. And at one point I had like 14 houses at once. There was kind of a backlog of foreclosures down at the county with a legal action with this thing called MERS. And then they went to judicial foreclosures, and we're getting in the weeds to boring stuff that doesn't apply anymore. But all of a sudden it was just like, there's like 12 a day that had been sitting around for forever. And
what year was this?
Oh man, that was like 14, 15, and 16.
And this was in Salem.
Yeah, always in Salem. I mean, I've done like 2 in Silverton, but yeah, always Marion County.
Yep.
I just could know the streets like out of the back of my hand because I already have lived here my whole life. And so when it's on a list, and I didn't have to go rely on a third party for some broker opinion of value, which, you know, AJ's not here, right?
Yeah.
It's never worth anything.
Yeah. Disclaimer, we do use brokers, good brokers.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's great. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're like, sorry, I was wrong. I mean, you know, the buck stops with you. And
certainly, yeah, it's your risk, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't really have a team often. I would just sort of go out, figure it out on my own. Certainly there were people that I relied on and I worked with. But when it came to those decisions, I wanted to be the one that was responsible for the outcome. So I was going to take responsibility for all the decisions just the same. So I've never really pointed my finger at somebody else and said, well, you told me it was worth this and now it's not. What are we going to do? Because it's my fault. So it's my problem. So I like to stay local. I like to keep it with Marion County, with the streets that I know. And yeah, there was just a gajillion of them. And so we're just scooping them up left and right. And that was crazy for a bit. I stopped keeping track at like 60 and I ended shortly thereafter. So we'll say 60 something, 60. I mean, I don't know, between 60 and 70 single family homes in Marion County that I had purchased, most at the county steps, and rehabilitated and then revitalized in a way. And while that was happening, I'd hang out downtown all the time because that's where the cool kids hang out. And the Landmark wasn't terribly far away. And so we'd always come down for lunch. You mentioned Conrad. He worked there for a spell as well. And we would, we'd say that we were Yelp before there was Yelp. And there was probably Yelp back then, but no one, wasn't as used. We just wanted to try every restaurant as soon as it opened. He's of course always been in his blood.
Sure has. Yeah.
And so we just loved any new food. We're always trying to figure that out and eat everywhere that we could. And so just be downtown all the time, wandering around. And then one day, this old Chinese restaurant that I used to go to as a kid, that we would celebrate Chinese New Year because my mom loves every holiday possible. Like I'd read the calendar every month and be like, I don't know what this thing, Yom Kippur. Hey, can we go out to dinner for that? Like we just, doesn't matter.
A good reason to go out to eat.
Celebrate anything.
I love your knowledge already. Yeah.
Arbor Day. Did you? I would get a gift for Arbor Day.
Sweet.
Yeah. So go trees. And so
the right place for trees.
Yeah. That's a good point. We'd always go to that restaurant, and then it was vacant, and then it was for sale, and then it was vacant and for sale for a long time. And Conrad was like, hey, you should put a food hall in because there's this place called Pine Street Market up in Portland. That's really cool. Went to Pine Street, a lot of food halls. Yeah,
research and development.
Let's see what happens. And then we started doing it. And as we were about to wrap up, and the governor shut everything down, folks were getting sick. And so, we got our DFO like a week after the order for no restaurants.
Oh.
So that was cool.
You barely skated in.
Yeah. But hey, still standing. So cue the Elton John.
That's right.
I'm still standing. No, okay. Fix it in post.
Karaoke? Is that?
He's doing it. So, another storm that we weathered. It's funny now. I see that there's always this theme of like, I come in right when it's getting weird and somehow make it through. I've never had like, I'm at the cutting edge of the trajectory that's up. It's doing okay. And oh crap, thing the fan, and then Charles shows up.
No, that sounds like kind of perfect time. Ask me.
I'm the cooler.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, I think you've had some really, look back at your history as an investor. I mean, 65 flips is, and I know you don't like that term, but is fantastic. I think there's a lot of people out there who haven't even done one flip or one or two, and they've gotten out of the game. So credit to you for being able to stick that out and the timing for those flips. I mean, 20, the depths of the market were, post 2009, right? The next, 5-6 years, we really saw some, difficulty in the market, some challenges, and there were opportunities, which you obviously saw. I want to put a pin in real estate. I'm going to come back to it.
Sure.
I want to
going anywhere.
Sure is not. I want to chat about the Salem community, and I want to talk about like you growing up here and what is it about. Oh, first of all, like, are you a native of the city?
Yeah. So technically, I was born in Salem Hospital, and my address has always been Salem, but it's north of Kaiser, but it's like no longer part of Kaiser. So it's way out Windsor Island Road.
Mm-hmm.
Go down Lock Haven, take a right, or go north. So which way? Yeah, whatever. And so I was always like, do I live in Salem or do we live in Kaiser? Because I go to McNary and there's all these Kaiser things. And but yes, technically I've always lived in Salem in that respect.
Okay.
But yeah, North Salem, Kaiser, whatever, that area. It's all 42 years except for the 4 that I spent in Newbury at George Fox.
Okay, fantastic. So what is it about this community that has made you want to invest here? Because I know I'm from Pueblo, Colorado, and I went to school in Denver, and then my soccer career just took me around the world, and I ended up here, and I have my reasons for investing in Salem. A lot of similarities in terms of the city I grew up in terms of size and scope and community feel. But what is it about Salem that makes you want to invest here?
I just never considered anywhere else.
So that's not good enough.
I know. I'm sorry.
Just kidding.
It is consolation prize. That's what we got. No, I didn't, like I say, just sort of evolved into doing that. But I suppose if I was to go back and to specifically focus on an area and choose, I would still pick here because I just already knew it so well. I think that I think the value of the anecdotal knowledge or even historical, not in the like capital H sense of is this a district on the National Register, which it is, but more of like, oh, that's already been tried in that building. Or remember when that was razzle dazzle? Or remember Mr. Mystics and it burned down? And remember that when you know those things, I don't know, it's sort of just, it gives you that X factor of we should do something different this time. Or that was good. I don't know why it didn't work. Let's try it again in a different way. Mm-hmm. And again, just sort of, I'll say the term vibe, but the vibe of the areas of town. Again, you tell me a street, I'll tell you if you should buy something there. And it might still work on a spreadsheet, but I wouldn't buy something.
Mm-hmm.
And
can I stop you real quick? That piece right there, I think for anybody who's getting into the game or has been in the game is just so important, because when you have that, that's what you pay brokers for, usually the real estate brokers, because they have that knowledge. But if you grown up in the community, you've lived there your whole life, and you can look at a map and just say yes or no, that's really valuable stuff. So sorry to stop you, but I just wanted to emphasize that. That's really important.
It's true. I mean, it really is valuable because, some of the best advice I got early on was don't buy something that you wouldn't live in yourself, or don't buy in an area that you live in.
Mm-hmm. I've got that advice before too.
And, we talk about some folks haven't done one or two, or they have and they're out and it's hard. And so many people like, I want to do what you do, or I want to flip a house, or I saw some TV, or my friend knows some construction. I think we can make it work. And good on you. Go for it. I mean, if you can, you should. It's fun at times. But I see so often that those folks that are getting started don't make the patient, good choices. They're just too eager to do it. And so they buy a manufactured home in an unincorporated area, and they didn't get a well test because it was a foreclosure. So, they're things that would bite you.
Yep.
And if they were to follow the would I live here myself, they probably wouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. And so that, I think, if no one takes away anything else, take that advice that was given to me and just take it to heart. That's one of the best things to have. But yeah, having that anecdotal knowledge or historical knowledge or whatever word you want to call it really is something that I guess borders on wisdom. And that's me patting myself on the back. And I would not say by any means that I'm wise, but I don't know a better term for it. And if you were to go into a new market, like if I went to Pueblo, Colorado, mm-hmm. I would not know squat. And I would say, well, this looks like a good idea. I should do it. But someone would go, oh, by the way, that used to be where they had the meatpacking plant. And, every August it really stinks over there. I mean, I don't know, making that up, right? But I wouldn't have known that. And somebody else might not have told me or just assumed that I should know that. And so out of sight, out of mind, or out of state, or different markets, or whatever, those things frighten me because you don't know what you don't know. And you can research the title, and you can have an appraisal, and you can talk to some brokers, and you can do the Google Earth. You can even go hang out there for a week or two, but it doesn't equate to 42 years. And so, you say like, hey, you're taking risks and whatnot. And yes, on some level, everything is a risk. Driving here is a risk, all right, if we want to really get into it. But I would say I'm actually very cautious because I stick with what I know and where I'm already comfortable. So in some ways, I'm a wuss. I don't actually take risks.
No,
because I would not buy anything in Colorado. Is there sales tax in Colorado?
Oh yeah, sales tax.
See, how does that affect things?
Income tax is lower though.
Okay, yeah. I'm moving there then.
Yeah, my parents actually have. There's I don't know what we would call this, a tax. There's tax code in the state of Colorado that says if you are 65 or older, you actually pay half your property tax.
Oh, way to respect your elders, Colorado.
So I know. So my mom and dad are pretty with respect to that. What you said, I want to maybe push back on what you said about investing in neighborhoods where you maybe wouldn't want to live. Is when I first came to Salem, I was connected with James Haig, great guy.
We went to many schools together.
He was such a wealth of knowledge for me, coming into a market that I didn't know. And so I really relied on him heavily for investing. And when I had my first conversation with him, he was the one who said, Salem, he said he's just in his James way, if you know James, said it's just so stately. He said, Salem is the gateway to Oregon. And I just remember that. And I got goosebumps. It was like, he's so true, because you have the coast, you have Portland, you have Oregon, Southern Oregon. You can get to a lot of places. And this is, the seat of politics here too. So that really stuck with me. But he took out a map and he drew a bunch of circles on the map. He was like, here's where you should be making offers and investing.
Yeah.
So I looked at the map, said, okay. I drove around some of the neighborhoods and I was like, they're a little bit out of my price range. And so I looked at some other neighborhoods, right? And made some offers there, and I ended up getting, having some good success. And I remember coming back to him, a few, because I was working with another broker within Legacy. And I remember we had a conversation, and James was like, you didn't take my advice, did you? I was like, well, I don't come from that mentality of invest where you necessarily would want to live. I want to invest where the numbers make sense.
Sure.
And so for me, the numbers made sense, and it was workforce housing. And for me, I came in 2016, 17, and the market had been rising and hadn't taken off like it did, post COVID. But I really, coming from a different market gave me a different, right? And I think somebody who lives here maybe wouldn't see it the way I did, but the neighborhoods, I actually think they were quite nice and compared to some of the neighborhoods I had invested in before. So really just perspective. Right.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you can get tunnel vision just the same.
Yeah.
Right?
So you basically said, when I asked you about why you're investing in Salem, is because you have this knowledge here. Is there, any other reason in terms of the community aspect? Because you look at the projects, we'll go through those shortly, but these are all community-based projects, engagement with Fort 40, escape rooms, and, really, bringing people and entertaining them, right? And feeding them. So how does the community aspect play into your decision to invest?
I wish I had a sexier answer. I really, some people are like, I really want to make Salem great, and I've lived here and I love it and I want to give back and all those things. And I guess it's probably still true, but it's not my first thought. It's not what comes to mind when I am doing anything. And so I'll just sound like a jerk, but be honest, that's just not what's on the tip of my tongue when that question comes out. It's probably what I should say, because it makes for a nice thing to say. But don't get me wrong, it's not because I'm against it. If I were, I wouldn't be doing it. So I guess, I don't know. I don't know how to articulate an answer to your question other than, I guess, because I have been here, and I'd say I am a member of that community. And so if I'm going to pick things that I think are cool, again, only child, then it should be something that the community also would maybe appreciate. If an outsider comes in and wants to do a thing, you're like, oh, great. Someone respects us enough to want to come and invest here. And that's the way that it gets looked at sometimes. But then they're just bringing in their outside perspective, which in and of itself is helpful at times for sure. But on the flip side, someone that's already been here then says, no, I know what could be needed. And I want to do it because I'm here and I'm doing it as someone that's already part of the community. There's equal value in that as well. And so, yeah, like I said, I don't have a sexy answer. I just do stuff that I think sounds cool. And I've been very fortunate and very lucky and very blessed to have it be relatively well received. So again, I just only child to think highly of myself. I don't know. This is terrible thing.
I think if I can rephrase that, I would say you're being selfish with your investment because you're doing something that you would do for yourself, right? To entertain yourself.
Sure.
But by being selfish, you're also appealing to, it sounds like a majority of folks who live in Salem because, these are investments that are, engaging. So I think by being selfish, you're also being unselfish, if that makes sense.
It's like dry ice.
Yeah.
It's so cold, it's hot. I'm so selfish that I'm actually altruistic.
Charles, that is your
giving person there is.
That is your new nickname. I can't wait. Mr. Dry Ice,
Mr. Dry
Weathers. Yeah.
There it is.
Well, Weathers kind of goes with like ice and storms. Okay. Yeah. I like that. Let's we jump into 440.
Those storms.
You
could bring them.
Puns are just going to happen now. I'm concerned for the show and the ratings. Okay. I want to jump into 440 because this project, I think, like cutting edge really for what cities are doing, right? Or we're doing. And I looked at, is it Pine Street?
Yeah.
In Portland. I've been there. I had been there before 440. And then Conrad told me, what you guys were doing over at 440. And I was like, brilliant. Like that's such a great idea. And I want to kind of walk through like, how you found the deal and kind of just like, how heavy of a lift it was for you. And then
that's the name of the
takeaway. Yeah, you got it. We're lifting.
Get it.
Heavy lifts.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know anything about cleans and what do we do?
Yeah. Well, we got a big log here. If you want to lift that after the show, you can. Cut some slabs off if you want. Okay.
Wait, is that the timbers sort of thing?
It wasn't meant to be, but it did. We're gonna hang different things from here, so don't worry, it'll change. Good. For you, it's the log episode, or maybe dry ice episode. We should probably somebody go get some dry ice.
Yeah, just like an ominous mist.
Jesse's on his way.
Through. Yeah. Okay, I forgot. Okay, yeah, 440. Well, we'd seen it in bigger markets. Obviously, Portland is bigger, but then just I like to travel, and that is a decent sized population has food halls. They were really getting pretty popular at that time.
Yep.
I'm sure Portland wasn't the first by any means, but it was on the upswing. And I was like, well, I like food. And I always enjoyed the concept whenever I went a place, because the whole point is, and as we say, our Wi-Fi password, 7 tastes, 1 place. You don't have to have the argument with the wife anymore or make the kids happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get what I want. You're going to get what you want. Everyone's going to get what they want. Mm-hmm. And I would see kind of this similar model of there'd always be like a burger, there'd always be like a salady, healthy one, there'd always be like some sort of fish or lobster roll or something. There'd be pizza, there'd be Asian, there'd be Mexican, and there was always the same sort of archetypes of cuisine in some of these. Granted, larger markets you'd have more. I mean, I went to quite a few in New York that there's 20 options.
But the genesis of all this comes from just like the typical mall concept, right? Where you have the food court, right? That's kind of like where
term, but yeah,
right. That's where it starts, right? That's unfortunately you don't want to admit it, but
right.
I mean, I remember growing up as a kid, like the food court was like where you went and hung out, and you had those different options, and it was a different vibe, a different experience than what you created. But that was essentially where it's
true,
right?
I mean, yeah, it's giving people choices. That's malls in general, instead of having to drive to one. I mean, it's department stores. It's all that thing. It's what it's been. Freddy's is your one-stop shop. I mean, getting everything you can in one spot. Similarly, during that time, especially in Portland, but I know nationwide, food trucks were getting to be sexy. And you'd go and there'd be ones that were really cool and really interesting and really worth your time and worth standing out in the rain and paying too much for something in styrofoam, but it was neat. And then there were ones that really weren't. that, but they were in a box on wheels, so you thought must be good.
Mhm.
That's the way it is with food trucks. But there's still quite a few really cool ones. Just in a side note, my favorite one got like broken into and burned down twice or something, unfortunately. But it was like a little old Airstream kind of trailer, not like a big old one, but kind of just the half one.
Yep.
And it was Nordic food.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in Portland, and just food that you just don't get. And that's actually what attracted me to food trucks and also to food halls. Is it's so hard to take on a brick and mortar. Nobody wants to do less than 5 years. Then you got the TI. If it doesn't already have a restaurant, you're up the wazoo in the budget. I mean, it's very, very tough. And the restaurants are the most likely business to fail, especially these days, And so when someone's like, well, much lower barrier of entry, I can just get my little $15,000 truck and cook for the love, and then they could be more creative with the menu, and they could take those risks and come up with food that you might not find because it doesn't meet this is just another pasta place, this is just another pizza place, this is just another brew pub kind of thing. That's the safer bet when there are all those factors working against you. You have to bet safe. I mean, no disrespect to any of those places, except Olive Garden. I do not respect Olive Garden. I'll go on record saying that. I do not respect
I love
Garden.
the breadstick.
No, just no. Okay, no. You're part of the problem.
Really? Oh,
Olive Garden is terrible.
okay. Well, you have to tell my kids that. Go on.
We have the most popular one like on the West Coast, right?
Do we really?
Yeah. The one in Salem is like leads the Olive Gardens of the world.
So you have a disdain for Olive Garden. So this is leading into what happened with this.
So when you take a risk at restaurants, you want to go with one that's most likely to succeed. Sure. Makes total sense. Yeah. Nordic food's probably not the most likely to succeed.
Yeah, are we talking about like lutefisk? Are we talking about just like bread and butter and jam? Like, what are we talking about in terms of
yeah, I mean, they're putting lingonberry on stuff people aren't rolling with. There was some leftas, the Swedish pancake situation.
Yeah.
The breads, they had like a fry bread.
What's the cheese called again? They got the cheese.
So
Brunust, brown cheese. Oh.
And then, they get to be creative in their naming too. Like, again, like the puns and stuff. So they had like Mjolnir, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, Thor has that. It must be good. And just things that you don't typically get. And that's a theme in my life. I, having been raised and been here and seen about the same stuff, usually always, I like something different. And so I like to travel. I like other cultures. I love filling up a passport and trying food that I've never had before. So food trucks really made that happen. And so, those were getting sexy, but it presents the problem of it rains 98 days a month around here.
Sure does.
And so you're sitting out there in the cold. You're not always sure if they're going to be open because the other edge of the double-edged food truck sword is that they're very nomadic. They're like, you know what? I don't think anyone's coming out today, so let's just close. You don't have that luxury when you have at least you got to try to make some money.
Yeah.
When you just have a bit of space rent, you're like, I don't know, I'm going fishing. Sure. And so
you can basically have a different kind of lifestyle because the rent isn't as high to overcome per month.
I think it just, and you don't have to have a huge back house and in front of the house. I mean, you just have one or two people, if that, or it's just one guy slaving away every day. Yeah. And so a different operator, again, fewer barriers of entry, more room for creativity, but less room for consistency or less requirement. Mm-hmm. So that's what these food pods would be. And some of those would add a little bit of indoor seating, or at least a place that you didn't have to use a porta potty. And then that evolved into a food hall, which is basically, like you say, it's like the mall, but we do not like the term.
So food hall is the term.
Food hall, definitely.
All right.
Yeah, not food court.
Okay.
It's a food hall,
which
implies an elevated, smaller bite, different menu, not all just out of the same kitchen, but they have a different, person asking you. I mean, it used to be the one in the mall, those 4 right there on the way into Nordstrom. It was all being cooked in the same place.
Yeah.
Right. But as a kid, you didn't care. It was like, I just want to get a sample at each. And then I'd go back and buy the one that was the sweetest because kids like sugar.
So with this idea, like, did somebody like come to you with this idea? Did you go to Pine Street to figure it out? Like, where did it like start? Like, was it just like the empty shell?
Well, it's entirely Conrad's fault.
He's responsible for a lot of, good financing at Pioneer Trust. Thank you, Conrad. And he was responsible for this idea too. That's cool. So he came up with the idea.
Conrad won't admit it, but he is actually the mayor of downtown.
Oh, that's what I call him. You may be Dry Ice Weathers. He is the mayor of Salem, no doubt. He knoes everything.
Seen Do the Right Thing. Spike Lee joint. He's Mr. Demer.
I can't walk around like downtown or anywhere with Conrad because we end up just talking to everybody. And I like talking to people, but he knows everybody. And it's like, I can't talk to him because it's just like, hi, it's good to see you again. Hi. Yeah. So Conrad's responsible for this. You went to Pine Street to, get some ideations. And so like, did Conrad find the space then? And then you ended up, coming up with, you guys kind of,
he was at, he wasn't at Pioneer anymore at the time. But again, we're just both wandering around downtown all the time.
Yeah.
And so look in, it was a building that was less than $1 million, which still downtown is rare. And, had an alley and it's a room in the back. And there had already been a kitchen in there and just, I don't know, it'd been sitting around. So I thought maybe they'll be patient and maybe they'll take a bit less. And we just, went down the exercise and it kept on relatively working. And so it just kept on happening. And then speaking of Pioneer, they were crazy enough to finance it when I had no experience with a 100-year-old building or any restaurant tenants or everything else that comes with that and downtown. And so I would be nowhere without the support and trust and backing of Pioneer.
Yeah,
sure.
And I could actually say the same thing because they took some risks on me as well, and they're not like a typical commercial lender. It's as much as it is about the numbers for a lot of banks. With Pioneer Trust, it's also about the person
100%
behind the numbers, and I really respect that about how they operate and do business. And I wish more banks operated like that, but I know you can't because there is inherent risk. So they are unique. So you got Conrad as a partner, right? You have Pioneer Trust as as a partner in this deal. And how hard was that lift once you had the idea? You've closed on it, right? You probably got some grant money from the city, I would imagine.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my Shri Wagran is maybe retired for the second time. I don't know. She was gone, then she came back a little bit, but I think she's all the way gone.
Just around the corner.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
she's still here.
Yeah, she came back.
Still around. Yeah,
because every day she's like, I only have a few months.
Yeah, she's still around. Like, at least she's still around.
Much of Scarface.
Yeah,
keep pulling her back.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, city was very, 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 very helpful there.
Yeah.
Of course, they had a lot of people having needs as COVID was, ravaging the business community, especially the hospitality industry, and so they kept coming up with new ways to support that with parklets and with the COVID grant and with the heaters and things. But yes, got what we always call the toolbox, but it's like the downtown urban renewal strategic. No, it's not this one. That's the trash enclosure that came later. But whatever, the big, the like far too many words in its title grant.
Right.
And yes, was able to get that. And then just working with also, Kimberly Fitzgerald, the historic preservation officer at that time, and understanding those things. And then I dove in all the way. I said, if we're going to deal with an old building, so many people go, oh, that's really hard. And you need some sort of consultant to figure all this out.
Yeah.
And the city makes it so tough because it's downtown and you can't do this and you can't do that because it's historic. And I said, well, if it's historic, don't we get some money for that or something? And so then talked to Joy Sears at SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. And she's like, there's a tax credit program. If you follow the federal rules, which are more constrained than the state or than the city, then you get all the other benefits. And I said, let's do it. And so my very first historic renovation, I took it to the federal standards, the highest authority in the land. And when you go that hard, then you meet the state standards and you meet the city standard. And in fact, that was often on applications and things. They would just be like, oh, well, they're doing it to the Fed, so we know they're good. That was helpful. So yeah, there's just all these layers of benefits that kept getting applied that even when it got difficult, because renovation is, restaurants are, those are the benefits really helped soften those blows.
And what was the your total construction budget on that building, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, it was, we made some changes, came in and out. It was around like 1.8 to 2.
Okay. And you had how many? 7 different restaurants?
Bar in the back.
Bar, yeah.
And then 6 stalls.
Okay.
5 of which have hood. 1 was intentionally supposed to not.
And if anyone out there has experience with tenant improvements and installing hoods, especially in the last just a few years, this was 2022, 2023.
We started in 18 and it got wrapped right at the very beginning of 20.
Okay. well, you at least were in a time period where it was a little bit less expensive to install a hood. But hood installations are a bear for anybody who's done it, when you have a lot of different moving parts with that hood system. There's a lot of different contractors you have to bring in. So credit to you for getting 5 hood installed in a single space, because that is a big challenge. Now, once you got up and running and got your certificate of occupancy, congrats. How did things go?
Well, everybody was scared for a number of reasons. And so there was just a lot of, hey, we're all in this together, because it's very much a symbiotic relationship, both within the food hall and as a tenant and building owner.
Yeah.
I don't just go, well, here's a piece of paper, screw you, pay me. That's not how I approach life. And that's not a way to have a sustainable, lasting relationship with anybody. And so we were just figuring it out together. I took the lead of dealing with OHA and OSHA and the requirements that were coming out. We'd get in a complaint here or there when we were open, and I'd field those things. And it really was never as bad as I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Although I had to remind myself that you get a letter from OSHA that's like, hey, we have a complaint that someone isn't wearing a mask. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, when was it? I have cameras. We have pictures. What was the person? What stall? Who do I need to follow up with? I have an action plan, blah, blah, blah. And I called the lady and she's like, you just have to write a letter back. Like, you're not going to come out and shut me down. I got like 842 of these to respond to. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Because the news makes it sound like we're now dead.
Yeah.
We will not be able to be in business.
Totally.
I'm sure that there were people that had much more egregious infractions than we.
Sure.
But yeah, it really, then when I got the second one, like 3 months later, not because we weren't doing it, but because, I don't know, I'm not in charge of everyone's employees. Like, it's a lot going on in that place. I was like, all right, cool. Cut and paste the first one. No disrespect to the process, but it wasn't what they were looking for. They were doing their job, which was to follow up on complaints.
Totally.
And we were doing our best to make the environment work. But again, I do not control every person that comes in the door or that operates there. It's not realistic.
Yeah.
And so there were times like that got a little more involved and held some hands and sent lots of emails and talked a lot in team meetings with the operator owners and saying, here's what we're doing to support you. Here's what the city's going to do. Here's what we hope. And you know what? We are all in this together. So a musical kind of situation.
Yeah. I can only imagine. And so once you got through that period where there was a lot of uncertainty and you're getting these violation letters, and, once you kind of came out of that, how was the relationship with the community? How was it received, 440, by the community?
I think, the one thing I never let go of was the Google reviews. If ever you've seen a snarky response on there, I'm your guy.
You don't seem like a snarky guy.
I know what the word means, but I was like, hey, stranger on the internet, you want to say something? All right, cool, let's talk.
Sure.
If you're not going to come here because of that.
I am excited to go and read those Google reviews now.
They've lagged lately, but for those years, I enjoyed responding creatively.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that people who do make those types of reviews and who hide behind those types of reviews without coming face to face with an owner to rectify a situation, I find those folks deplorable in many ways, because I think they lack any sort of courage, right? To help assist in an issue. So if you have an issue with something, you have to let the operator know about it. If it's an issue with the food or your service, let them know first. Give them the opportunity to correct the issue, right? And then if they haven't done that, by all means, sure, you can leave a review. But I do not like those types of people.
It's the internet's fault, man. You got ad hoc, 30 seconds, knee jerk, pull it out of your pocket and be like, these guys are terrible and here's why. Yep. People, that's the thing about food, man. It's why it's the hardest business. We expect it to be perfect, fast, every time.
Absolutely.
I don't know any other job that works that way.
No, that's why it's so
sorry. Like, that was $7. It better be perfect and fast right now. And now it's more like 17, right? But still, This is not fried to perfection. That's a little brown for my taste. Okay. You ate it, and did you die? I mean, I don't know. Like, it's hard. To be fair, I've never been in the kitchen. I've never actually served up a plate of food. And yet I still have massive respect for the folks that do. Kitchens are very terrible places to work often. There's ones that are worse than others. But man, it's hot back there. It's fast. It's no one says, thanks, that was a wonderful meal. Right? Maybe a little bit that when they're tossing some of it, they're like, oh yeah, cool, thank you, we'll come back. But no one's like, you know what? You really did a great job on that sandwich. Thank you, man. It's made my day. It's like, I don't know, the bread was a little burnt. You only hear when it's bad. It's so terrible.
Yeah.
But there's the internet's fault. I don't blame the people. I blame the internet.
Yeah. Well, it sounds really like when you invest in a project, you're investing like all in, and which a lot of us do when we take these types of risks. Is you have to wrap your arms around it. You have to stay up late at night. You have to deal with Google reviews. You have to manage it, and it can be time consuming. But obviously, the result is fantastic with what you do with 440. So kudos to you, because I think I've been in there many times and I've really enjoyed my experience. I took my son there a few months ago, and just like you said, options for him, options for me. He's eating pizza. I'm eating Middle Eastern food. Yeah. And we're both having fun. So I love that you created that. I want to move on to your other project in downtown. I've got a list of them, but I would love to hear which one. What was the next move after 440? At least as it relates to downtown.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's just a slight bit north, but went out to right past Boone's Treasury there, where Broadway turns into High, which I think would be a great place for a dispensary. Like, this is where Broadway gets high. The former Jason Lee mission site, very few people know, but there's a little interpretive sign there that we worked with the city to put up. But before it got moved, that's where Jason Lee's mission was. There used to be that sign with like a beaver on it that says Oregon started here, and then it got vandalized by the creek.
Okay.
But there was just a gravel nothingness by another building. And that property owner, through Pioneer Trust, got connected with me and said, hey, can we put something together? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? Figure it out. And so put up that 990 Broadway. It's 23 apartments with a little bit of commercial on the main floor. The owner requires the mixed use. Eye doctor that's down there. Came from out of town, so brought some business into town, and they're enjoying, I think, being there. Been a number of years. I don't own it anymore, but 23 apartments up in there, and got real creative with CB2, drawing that thing. And the same gentleman, Frank Graney from FXG, who did all the hard work at 440. It was then I said, hey man, you just worked really hard on a rehab, which is not fun. You want to do some ground up? Because that in some ways is easier. And he was like, oh gosh, thank you, please. And so Frank banged that one out and did a great job. And yeah, that was the next, or just slightly north of downtown, but still technically within the area. And then I always have my eyes on Whitlock's. It's just such a big, beautiful building, and that was not being used. Second floor was not empty, but vacant. All kinds of stuff up there, but that's so often the case of downtown. There's just so many second floors that aren't being used. You walk around and it makes you cry a little bit. And so took forever, but finally was able to acquire that. And then also took a while to do all the fixing up there, and made the terrible choice of putting in an elevator, because that is costly and time consuming.
Oh, I'm going to have to talk to you about elevator installation, but I can only imagine.
Skip it.
Yeah.
Skip it. But I've done it. I wanted to try it. So I did it.
Yeah.
So lesson learned.
Right.
And then that really got done like in December of last year, but technically got all the final occupancies in February of this year. Okay. So then got a new business in, and then a relocation of another business that wanted to expand and class it up a bit, and 8 apartments up top that are all really intricately designed and fit in there. And appreciate, again, CB2 coming up with some great ideas for that. And then one of these days we'll get moving here on what we call Retro Electro. It's the former Green Thumb. It's at 236 Commercial. You can see it in the alley right here behind the Ford.
Okay.
There was a big storage, just kind of metal corrugated building of nothingness. We tore that down to unveil the historic rear of the building that faces Commercial Street. And then we're going to put up 12 apartments in that alley, separate, just a little bit of a courtyard in between. And then again, remodel and mixed use the building that's on Commercial Street with 4 more apartments up top, and then some sort of business on the main floor. A couple ideas there, but who knows?
Wow. So you've got a lot going on in downtown. Isn't there one more? We're missing one project though, and I'm gonna bust out my list here. Is it Block 45?
We submitted for that, as did 5 other groups.
Okay.
And the city has narrowed it down. There's not an official announced decision.
Okay. Well,
Could be me. Could not be. I don't.
Well, it seems like, Charles, you'd be one of the guys to talk to, given how much you've already invested in downtown Salem. I'm curious, and I would love to dive into those other projects, but I think we're running out of time. My curiosity now lies in what you envision for downtown after making all of these investments, significant investments, a lot of which were intentional, it sounds like, and some of them were more curiosity, right? Where do you see the future of downtown Salem?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, some people come across my path and they'll be like, downtown is dying. Oh, now they're ruining parking in there that you have to pay for. That's the nail in the coffin. And look at all this, blah, 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 crime and homeless and shootings and whatever else. And I guess I see, but I don't see those things only. You think of everything being cyclical and there's trends and it ebbs and flows and it's a life cycle. I'm sure there was a time when all these big box stores came to downtown. People were like, man, Salem's on the map. I mean, we always were, but Salem's more on the map now. We're awesome because we have Nordstrom and we have Penny's and we have Macy's and Myron Frank, and we have all of the in malls and the fake mall known as Liberty Plaza. Like, we have multiple malls and multiple things, and look at these big buildings, and that's a lot of cranes, and that must have been awesome. And then now people are like, oh, look at all this vacant space. This is terrible. These big boxes of nothingness. So really, you're doing the future as the way that it's going. The folks, trying to work the mall out are doing that. The Forge is part of that, taking that life cycle of, all right, big kind of going away, and now we're making it small again, but yet still you can't have just one thing. So large spaces give larger opportunities, I would say, where you can have what is kind of missing. We don't need a bajillion department stores again, or even the same things as individual operators that really are just a department store with a bunch of little things. We need what we don't have, and that's something to do, right? Unless you want to get your bike fixed, a tattoo, or drunk, there's not a whole lot of other activities. We got an escape room, we got a break room. There's a few pottery places, like the new Clay and Kiln Collective. My daughter did a class there and she loved it. And if I talk about a heavy lift, they had to somehow flip and lift that kiln to the second floor of an old building.
Oh, man.
Terrible stairs.
Yeah.
And so people are taking those kind of risks. I mean, that's the future downtown, bringing this creativity, bringing in activity, bringing in things that are engaging and not just consuming. Right. Yep. That's what I would like to see. That's what I hope happens. That's what I think needs to happen. And that's not necessarily always business. There can be some nonprofit. There can be some shared community spaces. There can be some public art, because those are all things that you can engage with and that, support the livelihood or I don't say livability. We just use that to raise some taxes or whatever. But the, I don't know, just the joie de vivre, I think is the term, right? What makes life interesting, what makes downtown eclectic, the fact that this parking garage over here has a mural, like more of that, things that make you want to wander around and see what the next stage of that life cycle is. I think that's where it's going. At least that's where it needs to go. And I hope folks like you are toying with those kind of concepts.
Yeah. Well, toying with those concepts because of folks like you. And we were heading on the wrap up theme, but I really want to ask you about escape rooms. Can you tell me what got you interested in those and where your escape rooms are here in Salem, and have anybody not escaped?
Yeah. I know. And these one people, they're still clocked in, man. They've been paying for 5 years. Malaysia is what got me.
Okay.
I happened to be in Malaysia and I went to a mall. So I have no disrespect for malls. Because I want to see what a Malaysian mall was like, and started at the top, work your way down, and went to the top and was like, what?
What year was this?
A vampire? Oh gosh, I'm not good with you.
Okay. The historian Charles Weathers says 17 or 18. Okay.
That's all
So you're in Malaysia.
Fluid.
Malaysia, I heard vampire.
Yeah, there was like a vampire room thing, or there was a Egyptian room thing, or there was obviously a knockoff of Up. And I go, what are we doing here? And my wife's like, oh, let's figure it out. And so we went, and they're like, in their little bit of English, which is more than my Malaysian. So thank you. They're like, we lock you in. But not really. It's not scary. I'm like, that vampire picture looks pretty scary. And I was like, I'll take the Egyptian one because I love Egypt. And we went in, and there's like sarcophaguses, and lasers, and diamonds.
Sarcophagi.
Yeah, well, potatoes.
Yep.
And it was the best thing I'd ever done. I enjoyed it so much, and I had no clue what I was supposed to do or what was happening.
Yeah.
I was like, well, they must have these around here. Go to a couple in Portland. And then I'm like, all right, well, I think we could do this. And then I convinced Travis Noble, who was just coming out of college and just started getting into the boring business world. And, he was like, no, I want to be in charge of my own destiny. I was like, well, here's a great business that doesn't exist. Make it happen. And so he took that risk and left a paycheck to start a business with me. And mainly it's been his show, and it's, we're still standing.
So, and what types of experiences do you have at your escape rooms?
They rotate, but they haven't for a bit because we're still waiting for everyone to come on out. And people say it's a small city, but hey, y'all haven't been to Exodus escape rooms yet, so it's still big enough. The customer base is there.
I think I'm going to be booking an experience there with my friend group for sure. So yeah, give us the experience.
There's a couple different ones to choose from at the moment. Really, I say it's more like it's like you live in a scene from a movie. That's what's always driven my creativity in designing a room is you see a movie and you think, what would I do in that situation? Like, I've always wanted to get shot. That doesn't happen in the escape room, at least not yet.
Yeah.
I always wanted to get shot because you see a movie like that. One guy gets shot and he's done. Another guy gets shot and he still runs like 2 more miles and take one down.
Hopefully the shot
would I be?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not shot like so that it's fatal, right? Just more shots.
Just in the arm.
Yeah. Okay. Armor. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're out there and bored, come at me, bro.
Okay. So the experience is getting
some sort of thing like, could I disarm that bomb?
Yeah.
Could I escape that haunted house or whatever?
Okay.
And so that's what's always been the guiding force is that it needs to be some sort of scene from a movie. So right now there is a creepy old mansion. So it kind of has some Scooby-Doo-ish to it, but it's not for kids necessarily. It's not bloody and scary, but it's dark.
Gotcha.
There's hidden doorways and things. And then there is one that is an ode to Pork 40. It's an old Chinese restaurant that might have some nefarious things going on in the back room. You might be sent in to investigate. She actually used a lot of the stuff that the previous restaurant left. Yeah. So it still smells of sesame oil, like hardcore. Same benches that were in there for 30 years.
I love it.
And then there is one that you're in a remote Arctic research station, and you go to tag out the team that's been there. You lost communication with them, and so now it's your turn to be the next shift of researchers.
Gotcha.
You find out that they all died from a virus. We made that before COVID, but
amazing.
Life imitates art, man. I'm telling you.
That sounds so much fun. Well, thank you for sharing about the escape rooms, and thank you for sharing, everything about your projects downtown, about, your genesis of getting into real estate, and just about sharing about yourself. It's fun to talk to you. It's fun to hear your ideas. I would love to bring you onto my team, just in the ideation phase of what we're trying to do at JCPenney. And I would love to put you on the spot here because we are kindred brethren right now, only children with wives who are born 3rd and 4th July.
That's right.
Would you be interested in being a partner with us over here?
This is a
JCPenney.
Strange quasi job interview. Realize. I'm always happy to help. I'm always happy to, have the attention. Happy to talk.
Well, there's plenty of attention on this project.
Yeah. It's all part of downtown, and that's where I spend my time.
Well, I'll take that as a yes, and we can talk details later. But thank you, Charles, so much. Charles Dry Ice Weathers. Amazing to talk to you. Again, this is episode number 2. This is our 2nd episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And as we depart, this is Heavy Lifts, the podcast for those who see what could be and are willing to take a risk to make it all real. And you are certainly one of those people, Charles. So thank you.
Thank you.